with the amazing hair. Give Chris a hand clap.
All right, so I'm going to tell you a little secret. People always talk about my hair. The reason why you get this electric hair is when you meet and listen to people like Tim Story. Let's give Tim one more round of applause, please. So like Tim, I've been very blessed to travel the world and meet heads of states and billionaires and celebrities. But what I most admire about Tim is that he's in alignment with who you see on the outside and who he is behind the scenes on the inside. I met Tim many years ago in Vegas, where I was sitting backstage, and I saw him rocking the stage in T-Mobile Arena in front of 10,000 people. So he has this electricity that you see. And then behind the stage, I got a chance to hang out with him, and he was the same person. He was authentic, he was humble, he was giving, he was clear, but he had an alignment with himself, who he is, and why he wants to serve all of you. So what I'm going to teach you today is this, because given that it's about Hero League and Hero Mastermind, where's Adam? So Adam, let's give Adam some love one more time, please. So whenever I speak at any audience, I want to understand who is the person behind the actual event. I already told him yesterday I was looking at some of his Instagram. Today, this morning, I was thinking about, okay, how can I make sure it's really in alignment with who he is about and who he wants to serve? And what I loved about his messaging was he said that he's going to help you all have an actual mastery of influence. He's going to help you have love, accountability. So what I'm going to teach you all, hopefully, is how do you have that mastery and influence, and the best way is to share stories, because all of you have a superpower, but you have to learn how to harness that superpower, and the best way to do that with one singular laser focus is through your story. Now, you've learned how to share your story with Tim's story. I'm going to teach you what kind of stories to share, but you have to decide why you're sharing your story and who you want to serve. Does that make sense? So when you actually dissect what Tim does, he talks about when he's a 6-year-old kid named Timmy, and he has this friend that has a house that the white folk, they have these sheets that smell like roses, and they actually bought a pajamas that had his favorite color. But the thing that you always want to remember, that all these stories are like Tiffany Christmas wrapping paper, and the gift is that one lesson, that one concept. And the one concept that I chose to sink my teeth into that is delicious, which again, it's all for you to decide, by the way. Every single speaker, a teacher, what he calls a creative, you decide. We're just a menu of things that you can sink your teeth into. We're just a song that's like a melody, but you decide what you want to hear in your mind and most of all in your heart. So for me, the song that kept singing in my mind and heart is, you have to have a miracle mentality if you want to live a miracle life. And so you can clap for Tim. And if you want to have a miracle, you can't think like conventional people. You can't think like, oh, it's a Saturday, I'm going to take off and watch Netflix or watch the game. You're here because you want to learn and feed your mind and heart. So remember, instead of reading 6,272 books, you're better off rewinding that song every single day. I'm going to rewind the song of Tim's story and say, miracle mentality. Next 3 years, it's going to be so weird about my success. For you decide. We are the creatives up here, which you are as well, but you decide what song, what melody that you want to have that smile on your face and think, wow, now I know how to share my story. I'm going to teach you what kind of stories to share, but you don't ever let anyone take away why you're sharing your story and who you want to serve. Even if this guy named Hubert Eaton, has anyone ever heard of a Hubert Eaton? Hubert Eaton was so weird that he thought that cemeteries were ugly. He thought that cemeteries should be inspiring, should be motivational, should be inspirational. If you go to LA, there's a cemetery called the Forest Lawn Memorial Park. There are no actual tombstones that's raising up that he looked at as God. There's like flatlands, it's very soothing. There's actual sculptures of whatnot. But what I'm saying is Hubert Eaton knew why he was there in life, and he knew who he wanted to serve. All of us will pass. All of us have families who will pass. But he chose how weird it was for his purpose to help those that are grieving. He knew he was serving, so don't let anyone tell you your why, and you choose who your who is. So just based only on these lessons today, you know how to share a story, and now I'm going to share you what stories to share. Sound good? So I'm going to share 3 things today. One is who my hero is, what she taught me, and what I've shared this message with a lot of people around the world. So my hero is my mother. She's no longer physically here with us, but I always keep her close. I have 2 shorts that I bought over 10 years ago. One's gray, one's black. One has 2 holes, not holes, but like, what do you call them? Like tears in both butt cheeks. Another one is black, but I work from home, so I always wear things, do things to remind myself that she's always present with me. I have in my pocket rosaries because she was a devout Catholic, and everywhere I go, I bring this with me because I want to feel something. That reminds me of my mother. So for me, you have to always remember who is your hero. You ideally want a hero that is someone that you know, not some celebrity or some billionaire or some millionaire or someone you see online with 6,000 billion followers. It's people you've seen, touched, felt, hugged, loved. And so how brilliant and amazing is my mother, who her commitment as a hero, and that's all a hero is, by the way. It's you're committed to a cause. The 3 hardest days of my life was the day my mother passed, was the day that I had to go through her home, my mother and father's home, and go through all her various belongings and throw out most of them. But the last one was I had to give the eulogy at my mother's funeral. I have 2 older brothers, and I was the last one. So like all things, whether here at Adam's event or my own mother's eulogy, I went through my mother's home, and she had all these pictures in every single part of her home, whether it was at the kitchen table area, the dining room area, the living room area, along the hallway, in her bedroom. It was of my mom, my dad, my brothers, my cousins, my uncle, my aunts, and I counted, there were 365 photos. So every single day, this hero, my hero, who is here now with me, was committed to her family. And all she wanted to do, because I wrote a book about networking with billionaires and executives, and Christopher, why do you always talk about billionaires and executives and celebrities? I'm like, if you want to make a real difference, you do need money. I'm all about commitment for a cause, but you need cash to push that cause forward. Every single person that inspired the world, whether it's Mother Teresa, Oprah Winfrey, anyone, they had capitalists, ideally with a conscience, that pushed the story forward. There would be no Dr. King or Mahatma Gandhi or Mother Teresa if not for the commerce and the cash of understanding that it's just a transaction of purpose and commitment. So for me, my mother, bless her heart, named my brothers after saints. And she named me after St. Christopher. Does anyone know St. Christopher's story? He was the patron saint of transportation. He was this very large, broad-shouldered man with Wolverine abs, cane, 7-foot-tall Canaanite, and his mission, his purpose, his hero-like cause was to carry people along a raging river to the other side for safety. And one day, he carries this baby on his shoulders, and for whatever reason, he literally feels the weight of the world on his shoulders. With every step he takes, he almost drowns. He gets to the other side, puts the baby down, wonders what's going on. That baby is baby Jesus reincarnated. That's why his name, Christopher, my name, Christopher, means Christ bearer. He's bearing the burden of Christ. The reason why so many of us are not as successful or committed is because we think life should be easy. I just flew back from Budapest through Frankfurt gave a speech at Amazon in Seattle, and since I committed to Paul and Adam that I'd be here, I took a red-eye flight, came here. I was supposed to meet up with Paul for dinner, and he's like texting me throughout the day. He's like, dude, we're gonna just go eat there. And I'm like in and out of consciousness because I'm like, the jet lag is like 9 hours ahead. But I was committed to be here, so I showed up. Because you don't become successful if you don't stress. When you're flying on a plane, the reason why planes fly is because there's pressure under the wings. So you're deluding yourself to believe that you can be successful without stress. Planes only fly with stress underneath the wings, but when you have that stress in the direction, and when you have a hero like my mother or your mother or father or brother or sister, your boyfriend, your girlfriend, your dog, your cat, doesn't matter who it is, but make sure you know it's a real person that's committed to a cause. So that's the first thing I want to share with you. She just took it upon herself to say, you know what? My youngest son, how could it be that my goal now in life is to help my clients, my friends, my family, anyone I meet? We all have a raging river. I've chosen to bear this burden on my chest, on my shoulders, wherever I am, to hopefully minimize a little bit so they can get to that other side of safety. And all of us, if we're here to serve and to be of purpose and to have a hero mentality, why are we here? Yeah, money's great, private jets are great, yachts are great, all that is great. But I am more happy that my client who I helped build his company to 9 figures, who said, Christopher, I have good news and bad news. What's the good news, Doug? Well, I'll share with the bad news first. I have COVID. I can't fly from LA to Miami. Okay, sorry to hear about that, Doug. He has COVID. But the good news is you get to hang out on a 100-foot yacht with Kevin O'Leary from Shocktown. I'm like, oh, that's cool. And that was a cool experience. I met Kevin before. I spoken with Kevin in Saudi Arabia. But the cool thing is I still have Doug as a friend for over 10 years, though he's a client, a mentor, and friend. But that's what you want to focus on. Yeah, the surface stuff is cool, but what's the cause? My cause is to serve, help my clients, my friends, my family, so that if they're going through a raging river, yes, there's be some stress, but you want to make sure if they're about to drown, you pick them back up. Because there are times you cannot do it yourself. And in my mother's case, I always want to remind myself why I'm here, who I am serving, and how to share stories in a way that you can hopefully feel what I'm saying. Don't ever think about things, you feel. Every time I talk to people that want to be a speaker, want to travel the world, want to be as cool as Tim Story, they're always like, I got to think about it. No. You either feel for us or you don't. If you feel for passion, if you feel for service, if you feel for a miracle mentality, then you'll do what you want to do because that's what you've been meant to do from that man upstairs. But you have to have heroes in your life that you feel, that you can tell. I don't plan on crying every freaking time I talk about my mom. Every fucking time I talk about my mom. But I own it, I live it, and I channel it. She passed away 3 years ago. And I'm like, I'll be fine. But you know what? I just own it. So for all of you, don't be so desensitized that when you see things, you feel things, cry. Especially men. We're taught as men, we have to be strong. Yeah, you should be strong. But there's a reason why we have tear ducts. Because we're human beings. So for me, I'm just so blessed to have a mother who's no longer physically with me, but if you have people that are your heroes that are no longer physically here, have things around you. I have this rosary bed, I have the shorts she actually helmed, I have a jacket that she helmed, I have the shoes that she wore because she walked a lot, but all of these things remind me of who my hero is, so even though I have all these phenomenal exterior experiences, I know who I am internally. I know why I'm here, who I am, and who I want to serve. And for all of you, turn your phone off more. You will never know your purpose if you're constantly on your phone. It's like both the devil and angel in one place. But you will only hear your calling in silence. You will only hear your calling in silence. 3 stories I'm going to share with you on what to say. Again, if you dissect how Tim shares stories, if you dissect his mannerisms, his stresses, his intonations, he is a master. And people often find it crazy. It's true. For new speeches, if I give a 1-minute speech, I'm practicing for 10 hours. That's true mastery. You look at someone like a Kobe Bryant, he would literally read the referee hand manual, the handbook for referees. He'd find exactly where is the referee standing at that one moment. In that one moment, I'm going to have that one little part where he's not seeing me, so he can't call me on a foul. This is Kobe Bryant. You look at every single master in every industry in the world. Michelangelo, he was 26 years old when he created the David. He's like, people would not find my work that magnificent if they realized how much I spent on my work. Now, can you imagine 500 years ago? Oh, wait, I got to check Twitter. I got to check Instagram. I got to check YouTube, Clubhouse, TikTok. This is Michelangelo. So all of you, some of my friends that don't know me, well, I will literally block out everything. I turn the shades down. I have a very clear routine because I am here to serve you with purity. I don't even eat in the morning. For you, just know that all you need is 3 stories. Personal story, so people can relate to you. Did we relate to the speakers here today? It's not a coincidence. The deeper they go with vulnerabilities and struggles and weaknesses, for instance, Gail was so poor that her grandmother made a dress out of a potato sack. I want you to sink that in. She was so poor, Gail, that her grandmother made a dress out of a potato sack. At age 8, 9 to about 14, she was sexually abused over and over and over and over again. At 15, she had a kid. She was quite promiscuous at the time because she didn't have any guidance or commitment to a cause. Thankfully for her, she ended up living with her father, who father and mother both weren't together at the time. Her father was more disciplined. Her father said, you're staying this way in high school. She ended up getting into a college-bound program, went to college, won an award there, actually was in a pageant, won an award there, and then she found a TV job. You fast forward many years later, Gail's full name is Oprah Gail Winfrey. You look at so many of the success stories. Some of them might be like Paris Hilton, but I've met Paris before many times. She's actually a very humble, genuine, kind person. I met her at a homeless shelter in LA. But you want to find things in your life that are vulnerable and show that you are a real person. And that's the thing I told about Paul when I didn't meet him, because someone asked me to vet Paul and say, hey, this guy legit, and I texted Ty Lopez and one of his business partners, and he's like, no, he's very legit. But when I look at his Instagram, he's like, he just seems just very like stiff and arrogant. I'm like, I'm so cool. I got this, Ferrari in front of me. But that's what I saw in person, at least online. And then him and I are sharing a stage in Berlin, Germany a few years back, and we're like having dinner. He's like, like he has that laugh. I was telling Rod that before the end of today, I'm going to get that laugh down. But it's like this genuine, visceral 5-year-old laugh. And that's what you want to meet in speakers, coaches, mentors, teachers, because they're real. If you can't even laugh or smile, are you really authentic? Are you going to be a hero? So make sure you have a story to share so people can relate to you. I briefly talked about my mother. This picture really pains me. This is the culmination, by the way, of 10 years of pain, suffering, obstacles, challenges, and a lot of punishments. I grew up in a Catholic school. Teachers are very harsh. They punished me for talking too much in class as a 6-year-old. So if Tim Story knew his purpose at 10 and Oprah knew it at 10, I knew at 6 years old that my teacher kept punishing me every single day. Christopher, shut up. They didn't say that, but they would look down at me. Christopher, you're talking too much in class. Stop talking in class. You're going to stay out of the class and write, I will not talk in class 100 times, and 200 times, and 500 times. That I consider child abuse, because when you're an 8-year-old writing with chalk that many times, it really is abuse. But over those struggles of being punished and having a reading disability and being really short, where this is my freshman year in high school, I went to an all-boys school. I'm 4'10". Tallest guy is 5'10". So if you're a woman and you're short, it's not as bad. You can always wear heels. But if you're a guy and you're short, it's a pretty tough thing. It's like, hey, you want to go out with me? It's like, it's not really very sexy if you're looking up at a girl, okay? But I show this because, again, I meet a lot of people in life. I go all around the world and talk. And though they might be impressed with, yes, I've written 7 books, I'm a bestseller, I've interviewed Elon Musk, but they say, Christopher, I was teased too. I had really big ears. Or I was short too. I was 4'11", not 4'10", so I was 1 inch taller than you. But I had one woman who came up to me, she was in her 40s. She literally approached me, near tears in her eyes. She said, Christopher, my mother told me I was ugly. My mother told me that my nose was like a pig. My mother told me that I was so ugly, that I would never be married. Thank you for sharing your story. Thank you for sharing your vulnerability because I know that I'm okay. Whoever told you those things in the past, that's what they project themselves to be toward you. You never want to let those perceptions of what they said about you, that's just their problems, their issues. Don't judge them, forgive them. My father and I never got along, but I just accepted who he was. He never had a father of himself, so how can I expect him as an immigrant from Hong Kong to come here during this tumultuous time to teach me and my brothers how to be a man when he didn't have someone to teach him? And that's why being a mentor, a coach, a teacher is so powerful, because men and women both have a role, but you can't raise a man without having a man there. You can't raise a woman without having a woman there. You need both. But I'm so grateful that I had mentors like my uncle who taught me and hired me at age 12, because this is not someone that looks happy. I didn't have the hair yet. I had started getting acne, but the whole point is I'm showing this to you that when you want to share stories, make sure you share stories of that zit, of the excess weight, of whatever you're going through, as many people have shared today, because that's what made people relate to you. And then you have to share the arc of what are cool things you're doing now, because your professional story is the story that people have to aspire to be you. You have to have something you've done that people can aspire to be you. In my case, I never would have imagined. This is actually, I met Tim in Vegas. He was at the T-Mobile Stadium. This was at Venetian. There were 12,000 people across 4 days. You had Richard Branson there one year and Steve Wozniak from Apple. But for a kid that grew up in Queens, New York, no money, no access, no connections, my mom's a school teacher, my dad's a case manager, and for me to be on the stage with these people of that stature, and as Tim talked about how he had a memory about someone talking down to you, these are those moments that really teach you. When you're a keynote speaker, which all of you can and will be if you choose to, they always have a little green room for you. And so that's where you can have your own space, your own time. And I remember I walked into the green room, and someone was there. He's like, oh, I'm sorry, I'm just talking to some meetings. And I'm like, oh, that's cool. I just left. What I should have done was like, you know what, sir, I'm sorry, but I'm a keynote speaker here. Discover Card hired me. I need a space. But I didn't. So I'm sharing with you. Again, yes, I've been doing it for a long time, but those are moments that you're constantly tested. And I should have just had the courage to say, you know what? No, I'm sorry, but this is my room that they've reserved for me because I'm speaking here, so I'd appreciate it if you can actually find some other place. Now, some of you might think it's rude, but it's not. They paid me for a reason. I know what I need to get in flow and in alignment, so that's an example of how no matter where you are in life, you can always learn. And anyone that says they can't learn or not learning, then you don't want to learn from them. Always. To be billed at $20,000, and my first, which was $50 at a church in an all-black church in Stamford, Connecticut. This is insane. And to write books about Elon and to be a bestseller, it's also insane. But the thing that I'm most proud of, did someone clap, or that was just like some, okay. Okay. I always like to leave the space for the clap. But the thing that, thank you. But the thing that I most love, my company name is called Maven, and it's an acronym for Mondays at the Mission. It's a homeless youth program I started 13 years ago at the largest shelter in the country, where they have over 1,000 people a night that live there, including 100 kids. It's a thank you can clap. It's a 225,000 square foot building, 5 stories, and one day on September 2nd, 2010, it was a Thursday, I walk into the first floor, there's a church on the left-hand side, you walk down, there's a cafeteria, and then there's an area that you hang out. Second floor, there's operations. Third floor, there's an actual gymnasium. And between 5 and 6 o'clock, apparently, it's kids' time. Now, mind you, how many of you have actually been to Skid Row in downtown LA? The reason why they say it's the worst part of homelessness in the entire urban area in all of US. President Carter once said that it's the only third world place that he's ever seen in the United States of America. And so outside, you have pimps, prostitutes, drug dealers, drug addicts, rapists, murderers, and pedophiles. I wish I was joking, but it's all factually true. And yet I walk into the 3rd floor, I see all the kids running around, because it's their playtime. My stereotypical, arrogant, assumptive, presumptive self from New York City, because I had a triggering moment where my dear mother, she was walking along a street in New York City, and this homeless person was almost trying to grope her, so I had a very angry response to anyone that I saw was homeless, because it was a trigger point. So I always saw a homeless person or a person that's homeless as a man that's trying to hurt or threaten my mother. And I kept that trigger point throughout my whole life. But then on September 2nd, 2010, I walk into the third floor of Union Rescue Mission, and I see all these kids running around, and this little girl named Hannah, who's 8 years old, with this cute dimple with bangs, says to me, "Do you want to play jump rope?" And I look at her and he's like, "Sure, I'll play jump rope with you." So Andy Bales, who I consider a real saint in the trenches every day, he was the CEO of Union Rescue Mission, him and I are playing jump rope. And these are those moments when you talk about, Tim talks about miracle mentality. It's so easy for us to say, "I don't have time. I'm busy. I have to take care of my kids." And all that is fine. But there are moments in your life, Melinda Gates once said that there are moments in life that you will see suffering that will break your heart. But it's during those times that you must not look away, because that's when you know that change is born. So when I saw this little 8-year-old girl, "Do you want to play jump rope?" I'm like, "Sure, Hannah." And I said to myself, at that time, it was like my business was struggling, I was lonely, I was sad. I was actually a singer-songwriter, so like Tim, I'm a creative as well. But I said, I have to do something. I have to be like Mahatma Gandhi. We must be the change we wish to see in the world. We must be the change, you and I. Well, that's why we're all heroes. 5 days later, I go back there. I start teaching a life skill class for teenagers, because I prefer working with teenagers, was younger kids. And now, 13 years later, we're the only homeless youth program in the world where we've had special events. We invited Elon Musk and Buzz Aldrin and Angel, like all these people, to have them share their stories, because they have a who on why they want to serve. All this business stuff we do is great, but if you don't have a mission or a why or a who to serve, it's all dung, BS. It doesn't matter. And so now my singular focus is continuing my own speaking career, because I still love it. But when people started realizing you can actually make a living and help people and serve people by being a speaker, I'm like, yeah, you can, with knowledge you already know. But it's about framing your story in a way that you're perceived as an authority, so people can see you as that person they can believe in. So the last story you want to share are client stories. According to McKinsey, client stories, consumer-driven marketing, is 31% more successful in sales, or 31% more successful in impact, or influence, or persuasion, whatever you're gonna call it, just fill in the blank. So Dragana was my first official client. This is what Adam goes back to say before. I say my first official client because she paid full price, but I remember I was talking to a gentleman who was in the Caribbean area, and I think my program at the time was a few $1,000s, and I asked him, "What's the monthly salary for people that live in your island?" He's like, $400. So I'm like, he's not going to be able to afford my program. So I said, "You know what? Do you have PayPal?" He's like, "Yes." "Can you just PayPal me $1? So my actual first client for GPS, which is how I teach and help professional speakers become professional speakers, was the guy that paid me $1. But the actual person that paid me full price was this woman here. And I just talked to her last week. She's in North Macedonia. She went from, "I am so afraid to speak," i.e. struggles, stress, pressure, obstacles, who I sat down literally next to her, and she had 2,000 plus views. And in less than 2 years, she's making a living as a transformational speaker, and she just spoke at a global stage in Europe. That's what this is about. That's what this conference is about. That's what life is about. And it's all about, again, to summarize, how you speak, learn from Tim. What to speak about, stories, perhaps learn from me. But the why, never let anyone take that from you. And the who is something that, it's not something you think about. It's what you feel it for. I feel it for entrepreneurs. I feel it for young people, because I know that, like me, if you're not taught and guided and moved and mentored, you'll go off another way. I'm so grateful I had an uncle at age 12, when I was 12, not him, he was age 12, that he hired me at his insurance company in Manhattan. So I looked like I was 7 probably, and he's like parading around. "Oh, look at my name actually in Chinese is Ji, it means wisdom." He's like, "Oh, look at my in Chinese, like, oh, look at my great nephew named Ji. He's so talented and so diligent." Now, mind you, all these other stresses like, you're stupid, you're not bright, you're not attractive, you're short, you're dumb, all this stuff. Yet my uncle's like, "Oh, you're amazing." So all of you, make sure you have these heroes in your life. And the final story is about client stories telling you how awesome you are. And the last thing I'll share with is this. You choose who you walk with in life. I'm so blessed that right before the pandemic shut the world down, I gave a speech at a conference called AIM. It's like the Grammy Awards for the speaking industry and the event industry in all of Asia Pacific. And a woman walked up to me and said, Christopher, that was the best speech I've seen in 18 years. It was so real and raw and honest, because that was 2 months after my mother passed. And I didn't necessarily want to share this, but I said, look, if you want to build relationships, if you want to help people, if you want to be a hero, you know who your heroes are, and you always remember who you want to walk in life with. And that's my mom's shoes that I put right next to the door every single day to remind myself who my hero will always be. So thank you so much.